Top 10 Domestic Violence Research Topics. Domestic violence against people with disabilities. Domestic violence often affects the most vulnerable groups of people, women, children, and individuals with disabilities. In your paper, you can focus on the latter group. Start by discussing the unique challenges people with disabilities face and the impact of domestic violence on their well-being. You can also review statistics of domestic violence among this group and suggest effective interventions to tackle this issue. Battered woman syndrome as a theoretical explanation of domestic violence effects. When people learn that a woman lives with a partner who constantly beats her, they often wonder, why does she stay with him? One possible answer is a battered woman syndrome. It is a type of PTSD, which refers to psychological changes caused by a continuous exposure to abuse. You can write a paper explaining how this condition helps understand the experiences of women in abusive relationships. Domestic violence in Florida. Florida has strict laws on domestic violence, which prescribe mandatory jail time for intentional abusers of their intimate partners. In your paper, you may assess the effectiveness of these laws. You can do so by comparing domestic violence statistics in Florida with those of the nation's average or the states with less stringent regulations. Reasons for domestic violence. This topic encourages you to explore the origins of domestic violence from various perspectives. You can focus on the role of power dynamics, gender inequality, substance abuse, and other underlying causes. Also, highlight the complexity of this issue and the need for comprehensive approaches to prevent future cases. Effects of domestic violence on children. Here, you can discuss the detrimental effects of domestic violence on children. We recommend you pay particular attention to its psychological and developmental consequences. For example, explore the link between experiencing or witnessing domestic violence and the ability to trust people. Other potential effects include anxiety and self-harm. Further, you can suggest strategies to support children who have encountered domestic violence. Substance abuse treatment and domestic violence. For this topic, you can examine the intricate relationship between substance abuse and domestic violence. For example, look at the link between parental substance use and child abuse. Or you can try to explain why women who abuse alcohol become victims of domestic violence more often than their non-drinking counterparts. Finally, you can evaluate the effectiveness of substance abuse treatment programs in reducing domestic violence incidents. Domestic violence in America, Asia, and Africa. According to the World Bank, women in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia experience the highest rates of domestic violence. You can analyze the causes of such a high incidence of intimate partner violence in these regions. Are there any significant differences in societal attitudes, legal regulation, and support systems in America, Africa, and Asia, which may contribute to varying domestic violence rates? Answer this question in your essay. The role of nurses and midwives in recognizing domestic violence. Many victims of domestic violence present to emergency departments with signs of abuse. Yet, nurses are not always prepared to identify the symptoms of domestic violence and take appropriate measures. In your paper, you can analyze the causes of this issue. Consider aspects such as nurse training, language barriers, lack of privacy, time constraints, and victims' fear of police involvement. You can also suggest ways to overcome these barriers. Cross-cultural perspectives on domestic violence. Domestic violence occurs in virtually all societies. However, public attitudes toward it may differ depending on cultural norms and values. For example, in patriarchal societies such as in Ghana, people consider it appropriate for a husband to physically discipline his wife. These cultural differences can impede effective prevention of domestic violence. So, in your paper, you can suggest ways to solve this problem. Domestic violence and public awareness. In a paper on this topic, you can investigate the effectiveness of public awareness campaigns in addressing domestic violence. Do they reduce intimate partner violence rates? How do they affect the reporting of child abuse? You may also discuss successful examples of public awareness initiatives and analyze their strategies. Find more research topics on studycorgi.com.